love like Jesus. Thankfully, the Bible gives us the solution. Jesus told his disciples, I am giving you a new commandment that you love one another, just as I have loved you. John 13:34. It sounds simple, yet it's far from easy. But remember, if God gives us a command, he also provides whatever we need to obey it. In the context of John 13, the phrase love one another refers to relationships among believers in the church. But loving the way Jesus does benefits all our relationships by encouraging harmony, forgiveness, and peace. Since the meaning of love has been diluted in our culture to include reactions to everything from God to chocolate, it's important that we understand the biblical definition. So let's look at 4 aspects of Christ-like love. Its character. We usually think of love as feelings of affection, but in the Bible, the word refers more to an action of the will than an emotion. Although this kind of love may be accompanied or followed by affection, it's mainly an other certain direction of the will. And we see of it by what actions we take. That is, when we choose to do what is best for the other person instead of looking out for our own interests. Now you're probably thinking, there is no way I can love like that. That's true. In our own strength, none of us is capable of loving people as Jesus does. Sacrificial, selfless, forgiving love doesn't come naturally, but we have someone who can help us. Its source. God is love, John 4:16 tells us. Note that it doesn't say he's sometimes loving, or that love is a part of who he is, but that he is love. This means it's not something we can work up with self-effort. Only as we're united to the Father through faith in his Son does the Holy Spirit pour his love into the believer's heart. Romans 5:5. And he works, and as he works in our heart, the fruit of the love is produced in us. Galatians 5:22. Sacrificial, selfless, forgiving love doesn't come naturally, but we have someone who can help us. But even though God gives us the supernatural ability to love, we play a role in this process. We must practice loving one another and seek to excel at it even more by his grace. 1 Thessalonians 4:9-10. We'll never reach the point of perfect love for others, but we can become better at it as we let the Spirit work in and through us. It's standard. We like to think that loving other people is optional and dependent upon their treatment of us. In other words, they must deserve to be loved, and if they don't, we're off the hook. But that's not what Jesus said. He clearly stated that we are to love others as he has loved us. Since we're sinful, rebellious creatures, we certainly didn't deserve his love. Yet God chose to love us even while we were his enemies. And to demonstrate, he sent his Son to die in our place, thereby bearing the punishment we deserved. Romans 5:8. Jesus' command to love one another has no excuse clause. We have a responsibility as God's children to imitate him and walk in love just as he did. Ephesians 5:1-2. Its expression. Now that we know we're required to love others, how are we to do it? There are 3 primary ways we emulate God and express his love towards others. With Christ-like character. Love begins with a changed heart. We must cooperate with the Spirit's transforming work and put a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Colossians 3:12. And isn't this exactly what we need if we're to love difficult people? Otherwise, all our expressions of love are rooted in hypocrisy because our hearts haven't been softened. We'll never reach the point of perfect love for others, but we can become better at it as we let the Spirit work in and through us. With Christ-like behavior, We're probably familiar with 1 Corinthians 13, the famous love chapter. But have you considered what it requires of love? Love responds with patience and kindness towards exasperating, cantankerous, or mean-spirited people. It doesn't behave jealously, proudly, or disgracefully, nor does it demand its own way and rights. Instead, it considers what's good for others, and perhaps the most difficult requirement of all, it's not easily provoked to anger or exasperation and doesn't hold grudges. With Christ-like sacrifice, since Jesus' death on the cross was a supreme example of his love for us, we too must be willing to lay down our life for others. John 3:16. Although some Christians have literally died for fellow believers, our sacrifices are generally a matter of giving ourselves in service to others, spending precious time to help them, or simply denying ourselves and our desires in order to do what is best for someone else. To have Christ's sacrificial attitude, we must selflessly consider others' interests as more important than our own. Philippians 2:3-5. Loving like Christ is a tall order, but we have a mighty God who is at work in us, making it possible. When we start to love people as God does, we will help establish unity in the church, create harmony in our homes, and present a powerful witness in the world, because our love for each other distinguishes us as Christ's disciples. John 13:35. Loving like Christ is a tall order, but we have a mighty God who is at work in us to make it possible.